consultant at AESG, whose work spans the UAE, Oman, and Saudi Arabia, and whose passion for human centered, climate responsive design is truly inspiring. Hi, Aparna. Welcome.
Hello.
All right. So today, Aparna is going to talk to us about the topic, which is designing in the desert, and we're going to talk about various different aspects that we can have to deal with, the arid climate. So, Aparna, you can go ahead. First, you will have your presentation.
Okay. Um, so let me just share my screen.
Sure.
Do let me know if you can see it.
Mandesh, is that visible?
One second.
Yes, it's visible now.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. So, hello everyone. Thank you, Udit. Thank you for inviting me today to speak on this very interesting topic. Being from the architecture background, this is one of the challenges that we face in this region, and being from the architecture and the sustainability background, the field, it's really nice that I'm part of this discussion altogether. So, a brief introduction about me. I have been working in this industry since a long time now. It's been more than 12 years now. I have also worked as an architect and for a longer time in sustainability field. I have worked for majority of my career in this region. It's in Dubai. So I had a lot of experience and like discussions and challenges and arguments with the clients how to make sure the design goes sustainable way and we've managed to convince the clients as well, the designers as well, to go in certain way to make sure the buildings are suitable for the region, not just going the modern way, and also ensuring that we are we achieve that sustainability in some way or the other. So let me just start with the presentation, which I want to talk about. The topic is really vast, and if I get to talking to this, I'm sure we can have even one full day is not enough. So what I would want to just discuss would be one topic, which I would start with, and then we can have a discussion on that
Fantastic.
eventually. Yeah.
I'll just tell you, you can only see the presentation in PPT mode. If you can change that to a full screen, then that will,
Oh, okay. I
right
thought
now
it
it's seeing it
was.
in the PPT. Keeping it as
Right. Okay. Okay. Let me just stop sharing that and I will share it as a PPT. That makes sense, I think. Um, can you give me a moment? Let me see how to work this. Now you're able to see the presentation?
yes, yes. This is
Okay. Okay. So I actually started off.
all right. No problem. This is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. You're able to see now.
Yes, this perfect.
Okay. So my why I've started with the history is we should learn from our history. Our ancestors, our forefathers, they knew a lot more about everything, which we probably have lost in transition. But if we see, for example, our the civilizations, they knowingly or unknowingly have followed a lot of concepts which now we know and we consciously put them in our designs. For example, the Indus Valley civilization, where they had used the water bodies to transportation for transportation, or they had their cities developed in a proper grid layout, a proper urban planning it had a sophistication in it. Also, Egyptian civilization, they had whatever challenges they had, they used the resource of Nile, they used the waterways, and they developed their agriculture, and they use the resources in the right way. Our modern buildings, our resources, yes, we have availability of a lot of materials which probably were not there back in those days, but how efficiently are we using is a question. If you go to see any modern buildings these days, be it any region, any city, the glass buildings look nice, yes, but of course, these glass buildings have their own challenges. We cannot say one rule fits all. For example, one major thing which glass does is reflect. Yes, in sustainability, in green buildings, we make sure we specify the glass materials to a certain U value, which is the conductivity, how much heat transfer can happen through the glass, solar heat gain coefficient, the SHGC that we call it. We specify all these requirements, the measures, to make sure the indoors are cool, to make sure the indoors have right uh, temperature, right thermal comfort. What we tend to ignore probably is what happens outdoors. This is what I would like to discuss today. Um, like I have shown in this slide, is say for example a glass building. We would have a light transmission of certain factor. We will have solar factor, heat gain. What is happening is the indoors is now controlled. The thermal comfort indoors is controlled, and the the idea is to reduce the heat gain indoors, but what is happening is the solar heat is actually thrown out into the surroundings, and what this leads to is nothing but heat island effect. So the area around the building is actually getting heated up, not just because of the direct sunlight, but also due to this reflected heat and reflected light. That is what we call as heat island effect. So if you see the next slide, the rural areas, the heat is low, the temperatures are low. But as you go to the city, and maybe in the city center where there are more buildings, there's denser development, the heat is high. The temperatures there would be high because the trees are less, the the buildings are more. Also, these buildings, if say for example, city like Dubai, we have a lot of glazing, which adds to the heat island. Um, this is something I came across while browsing, even the social media. People share these small studies which are very obvious. We tend to ignore, with trees, without trees. Such an important thing. A small idea of just putting up trees can help the heat island effect to go down, and to not only have thermal comfort indoors but even outdoors. So you see the difference. With trees, it's so much cooler, and without trees, it's really, really hot. This is the radiant. A lot of aspects of heat reflected, radiated, but the trees really help in absorbing that heat and give us more comfort outdoors. For example, the famous building in London, I'm sure many of us have heard of this. The building that melts cars or fries eggs. Yeah, this people have actually done on the street, and it's not a made up, it's not a photoshop, but this has actually happened. And then when people realize that, oh, this is actually affecting the cars that are parked outside the building, the light and the heat being reflected by this glazed facade actually can melt cars, actually can fry eggs in a pan. This is when they started then finding out what can we do to reduce the reflection. Then they started with maybe a coating, a film, but the challenge still remains. Not just that, it's also the hazard of accidents because of the reflected light. The shiny building looks nice, but then while driving, it's really, really annoying, I can say, that the light reflects into your eyes and you really cannot see the road properly, and it's a hazard for accidents. Yeah, what we can do as a solution, Lots of things. There are endless possibilities for sure. Concepts that we should remember: sustainable urban development, design strategies to address the issue, make sure it is human centered. At the end, all this is for us humans, so it should be human centered. And don't forget the roots, because yes, our ancestors, our forefathers, ages back, civilizations back, had lot of ideas which really made sense, and I think it can still apply in this age of modern world, with modern buildings. With, yeah, we can apply the concepts for sure. Every aspect of our life deeply connects to the built environment around us, so it's only logical to make these livable by designing it and by building it in those terms, to make it livable, right? So sustainability speaks of exactly that, and that it has to be self-sustainable, self-manageable. Um, it's not just having trees around. It's a lot of other aspects that link together to make the development economic, economically sustainable, or socially sustainable, or of course environmentally sustainable. We need to make sure the designs are around these concepts: the economic development, social progress, and environment responsibility. That's when it will be a viable world, fair world, and a livable world. And we can then say it's sustainable. Yeah? Solutions are endless, ideas are endless. Facades could be having certain louvers or mesh design, or what we call in this region is the mashrabiya. It's the net design, like we say jali design in India. That could also be one feature that can be blended with the modern concepts of glazed facade to give a good look, of course, the aesthetic look, but to make sure we tackle the other issues like I just discussed in the previous slides. Um, there are certain facade. There are many, many buildings around the world for sure. Many people know and definitely are working towards making the buildings uh, more environment friendly, more people friendly, people oriented. So there are many, many design solutions for sure. One project I can talk about, I'm working on it. I haven't worked on the facade design as such. I'm working on the sustainability aspect of this. So it's a city, Masdar city in Abu Dhabi, which is supposed. It was I think it's the first development in this region that is totally sustainable. You can call it a sustainable city. They have used so many concepts in the design, not only in the planning of individual buildings, but for the uh, whole city as such. And all the buildings in the city have to follow certain sustainability principles to make sure they stick to they come through true to the name of being sustainable. This is the Masdar city, and if you see the image bottom left is the MC2 headquarters. It's called the headquarters, and the curved facade that you see, that actually is the solar panels. So this building is. Hello,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. All
Sorry,
right.
yeah, I think there was an issue with my internet. Something
No
happened.
worries. No worries.
Can you see me?
Yes. No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to set up. Can you see the screen, the presentation?
Yes, we can see the presentation.
Ah, okay. I
The
think it's
presentation is gone again.
it's
Again, it
gone
should come.
again now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Sorry, there's something wrong with my internet also today. Now can you see?
mm, yes, the
Yes.
screen is up.
Can we continue in that case?
Sure, no problem.
Are we live? Sorry, I don't know.
So we can see your, yes, we are live. We can see
Okay.
your screen.
Okay. Shall I continue?
Yes.
Okay, so what I was saying is that this building now is going for Estidama, which is the region's green building rating system for Abu Dhabi,
Mhm.
and it is also going for and it is well certification, and it's going for LEED zero. So the curved surface that you see, the curved facade, that's actually the solar panels. So the building is
Mhm.
going to be net zero, but they're also targeting net positive, you know. So
Oh,
that's
that's
quite
great.
ambitious as well, but then it's happening, yeah. um, Even the facade, if you see, there is glazing, but the way the facade is done, it's taking into all these aspects of reducing the glare on the outside, to reduce the reflection. All those aspects are being taken into consideration for all the building. If you see, like I said, the bottom left is actually the headquarters building, but then there are other buildings which are also, like, it's a rule that it has to be designed in certain way to follow all these principles. So
Mhm.
this is what is happening in this region. What they're doing is that they are incorporating the traditional architecture into the modern architecture, to make sure that, because the traditional architecture, of course, is a maybe ground floor structure, a small structure, which is the adobe building, that is the traditional for this region. But the concepts are being used in the modern buildings, which are also high rise, to make them more sustainable, more environment friendly, and people oriented. So this is one example I can talk about. So yeah, this is what I wanted to discuss. I'm happy to take any questions, any discussions we can have further on this. Sorry, my
All
screen
right,
is
wonderful.
going.
Thank you so much, Aparna. That was a really insightful presentation.
Thank you.
Um, I really kind of had a lot of questions coming to mind, even as you were talking about, right
Hmm.
from history and then also going into today and what we're doing. So,
Hmm.
um, you opened with a very powerful idea about how our lives are deeply connected to our built environment itself. And for you, as someone who's been working in sustainability and architecture, how does that, what does that connection mean to you when you're working, or especially when we're doing, fast-paced projects, commercial projects, things where, things are also working on a timeline. How does that kind
Hmm.
of, do? Because that's something I've also personally experienced as a place where, some of that needs to be balanced. Some of those decisions need to be looked at from both sides. So what is that kind of, the connection with the built environment and sustainability in fast-paced projects mean to you?
Yeah, it gets really, really challenging for sure, because sustainability, as much as now, I think everyone is aware of these things about the green building, about the sustainability, but it has always been like an add on for the designers, for the
Mm,
contractors. It's like an additional thing they have to think about, which is surprising, because for me as an architect, it's something that is part of the design process itself. but that's not what everyone would think like. It's something that they think as a added headache probably. And so, but then it gets easier once we put our ideas across, we put our reasoning across, and then they get a little more open to ideas. And uh, it, then again, designing is still okay, it's manageable, it's we get through the designers, and we um, get the support from them. It's the
Mhm.
construction that we face a problem, you know,
Yeah.
it's the
The
construction.
designers are on board with the idea of bringing in sustainability, and they're already integrating some of that. It's when your
um
execution is
yeah,
where it kind of comes into trouble.
execution is what is the challenging part, because like I said, it's for the execution, it's an additional thing, you know. It's a added responsibility, I would say, or added scope of work, which
Hmm.
they don't want to do. But the designers, as much as we face the resistance all the time, we do face the resistance even from the designers, but eventually we get through. We come to a platform where we both have the understanding of what is to be done, the challenges with the project. Every project has its challenge, yeah. Deadline. Not only the deadlines, but the expectations from the project. Like I said, places like Dubai, you need that that shine. The buildings cannot look the Adobe structure kind buildings. You know, they have to look shiny. They have to have nice lights, and it has to stand out. And so, yeah, it gets challenging to bridge that balance. But it really helps if the client is online, you know, in the same terms of what we are trying to establish here. So that is what was the plus point in projects like Masdar City, where the client is 100% lean on making the whole city as sustainable, as eco-friendly and environment friendly. So it's not just about the certification here, it's about actually making the buildings in the way we discuss. Yeah. So that helps if the client is on same terms.
Absolutely right, right. That makes a lot of sense because, especially when we're talking about individual buildings trying to do something on their own, coming up with their own strategies, then there's definitely some amount of struggle. Whereas
Right.
as soon as you start taking it up at a city level, larger level, urban scale, a lot of the policies could be informed from the beginning. There could be things already planned out in advance, and so
Hmm.
a lot of adherence gets taken care of right from the outset. And
Hmm.
maybe there's some kind of scope reduction or cost saving also in that approach.
Hmm.
So that makes a lot of sense that
Hmm.
they're taking this up. And I think another thing always struggle to kind of understand also is while we're in an extremely hot climate, and
Hmm.
everybody knows how glass is like a one-way funnel for heat, right? As soon as
Hmm.
it changes from short wave to long wave radiation, that radiation is trapped inside the building, and then
Hmm.
you can't get that radiation out. So it was really interesting to see some of the strategies that you shared as well, and I wanted to know a little more about how we see glazed buildings continue to dominate the skylines, even though
Hmm.
we know these drawbacks, and especially when we're talking about this kind of a desert climate, extremely high temperatures. Even climatically, the temperatures are high, and we're only kind of um, designing to make it hotter indoors
Yeah,
and
that's
then
true.
running
Yeah.
system to bring back down the temperature back to 23, 24 bearable
Hmm.
temperatures. So why do you think that this kind of aesthetic persists? There is historically proof of so many different kinds of materials, so many different kinds of strategies, which have evolved from the place, from the region, from the same people who've evolved those architectural designs. So, what do you think about why does this aesthetic persist, and how do you approach changing that narrative, if at all?
Uh, I think it's the influence in a way, because uh, the glass buildings have always been for the cold region, yeah, but they look nice. You know, it gives that modern feel. But the the design strategies for this region, for example, like I said, for the adobe structures, for example, they wouldn't
Hmm.
give you the same look and feel of a modern structure. Everyone wants to do a modern structure, right? Everyone wants to have a modern
Right.
building.
But our perception of modern also, my question is, see, we know glass is a solution for cold climates. It's
Right.
practical solution for cold climates where we
Hmm.
want to trap the heat, we want to save on our energy bills, which we use
Correct.
for heating.
Hmm.
But in
Yeah,
hot
that's
climates,
exactly it.
that's where glass should ideally come in. And
Correct.
is it kind of trying to look more like the West, or
Hmm.
why is that aesthetic continued?
Also,
You know,
yeah, you said it. You said it. Yeah, probably it's more of trying to look more like the West. I don't know if this can be said, but Dubai is compared a lot to Vegas, you know,
hmm,
in terms of the skyline. If you see
hmm,
many buildings would remind you of Vegas skyline in a way. So I think it's that the influence of the West, and it's the idea of making the city also modern, more approachable.
true.
Then
I
there,
think there's a lot of people
yeah,
moving to
political,
Dubai also from the West, from Europe, from the US. I think there's also some familiarity. Those
correct,
kind of things might also play a role in terms
correct.
of inviting more people into the city specifically, I'd say.
Right. And then it's the other way around also, people coming from the east. This is
Hmm.
like in between, it's not west, but it's a
Hmm.
blend of east and west, you know. So
Hmm.
so it's something more of the influence, I would say, more of trying to get inspired by the West, if I can say so.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
So
it could
east
be one
means
of
west is what you're saying. There's somewhere there are elements coming in, and there is old knowledge, there is wisdom from the past, which is also being integrated, and there's also the influences from glass buildings, cold countries, and all of that as well. So it's kind of trying to do both in a way that
yeah.
is respectful of the environment.
Yeah, so it's now that there is more consideration to
Hmm.
blend the two cultures. There was a phase when it was just adapting the West. So that's when all this started, the issues started. And then once the buildings are there, it gets difficult to rectify the problem. You know what I mean? And say, for example, UK, if I give the example of the building that melts cars, for example, yeah, it is the West in a way, but then the climate change has affected everywhere, right? So probably that was not taken into consideration when the glass was selected with that reflectivity, which is probably good for the indoors but not for the outdoors.
Right, right, right. So this is a very good point. Also, when we talk about air conditioning and using systems to deal with the heat,
Hmm.
even if the design isn't taking care of it by itself, where we
Hmm.
say that if we eject all the heat out of the house, then we are taken care of and we are considered to be thermally comfortable. But that
Correct.
heat goes out and it still creates an overall place of
Hmm.
outdoor heat, which is either your neighbor or the next building, or
Correct.
as a neighborhood you still end up getting heated up,
Hmm.
while the indoors might just about be cool. And so, thinking
Yeah.
about it from a holistic point of view, like you mentioned, would probably be a better, more effective way, a long term, sustainable way of dealing with temperature control, thermal comfort, which at the moment it's more of just remove it out or just reflect it away, take it away.
Yeah, I think the holistic approach is needed, not only thinking about the indoors, like you said, not only designing the indoor cooling thermal comfort. The holistic approach of considering the outdoors in parallel will help, according to me. That should be like the baseline, and
Right.
being more considerate to not just the occupants of your own building but also to the surrounding.
Right, absolutely. Justice. A
Yeah.
just way of sharing and dealing with the heat together, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, before I go to my next question, I just wanted to
Yes,
check
please.
with you if your bandwidth is fine. We can switch on video.
Just a second, please. Let me try again. Somehow it's not taking the video at all.
Okay, all right, fine. So maybe it's related to the internet thing.
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay,
Sorry about
no.
that.
So my
Mm.
next question is, you said that you also worked in multiple places, right? And different kinds of climate types, different kinds of uh, government and bureaucracy, different kinds of rules and regulations in each of them. And especially in the Middle East, I think that's evolving. There are new
Yes.
regulations coming in. They were using different ones earlier. Now they have the local codes as well. So it's kind of like an evolving, growing field. And I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit about your own experiences and how regional approaches to sustainability differ even when you have the similar climate. Like it's an overall desert climate, but still there may be differences when it comes to the regional approach of how one does things or how stringent things are or those kind of aspects. So what are the differences you've seen in your experience?
Yeah, so this region had only lead, which was not very, I would say it was not 100% applicable for this region. Of course,
Hmm.
lead also is evolving, but it doesn't always apply for this region. For example, bicycle credit, which we have in lead. This region is really, really hot in summer. It goes to 50 degrees plus, and you cannot expect people cycling. So, no matter how much you provide the bicycle lane or shaded bicycle storage, people
Hmm.
don't want to use cycles, yes? But that is
Hmm.
lead, and you lose out if you don't provide the bicycle. So, for the just for the sake of the credit, people would want to provide,
Right,
uh,
right.
but there are now regional, uh, local green building regulations which handle exactly these aspects, which actually address these concerns. Which um, then again, there are too many local regulations as well, because now
Yes,
Abu
that's what I
Dhabi
wanted.
has its own. Yeah, Abu Dhabi has its own Esidama.
Hmm.
Uh, Dubai has its Trakki's EHS certified local. Even Dubai municipality has its own green building
Falsafa.
guidelines. Asafat, yes, exactly. And so Dubai itself has two. And
Right.
then Saudi has its own Mustadam. So there are too many. And of course, even in US, there are too many. There is lead, there is well, there is this, there is that. There are so many. Uh,
Hmm.
it kind of gets repetitive in some cases. Some
Hmm.
cases it's not applicable. So it's just now what happens in this region is the clients, they want to show the projects having as many ratings as certifications as possible. So now it's just about marketing.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
This is one challenge we do face. We have to convince the client not to go for more than two rating systems. But if the client has made up his mind, that's another story. But then, because more than two, you would end up repeating and not really helping the project as such. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
that is one definitely one thing. But yeah, uh, there are certain things. Say, for example, as Sidama is doing, because the region has this weather, this climate conditions. Yeah, they have certain credits which are mandatory. Like you need to have certain amount of shading outdoors for sure. The end. You have to comply, otherwise no certification for the project. That is
Right.
something nice, which lead wouldn't have. Lead doesn't have that thing. Say, for even for the example, the Dubai green billing Safad also wouldn't have all those aspects. Dubai addresses some other concerns. Um, there are certain aspects which even the authorities understand that it should be implemented, but it's either political or you know different reasons. I wouldn't name them now, but then we cannot implement. For example, in Dubai, the major concern comes is the uplights, the night light. So the
Right, right.
night sky pollution is a big concern, but it cannot be addressed um, for many reasons. I think there are obvious reasons as well, but that is one challenge we as sustainability consultants face, because as much as we try to explain and the authorities do understand, but there are
Hmm.
things that cannot be implemented.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's where
So
we
light
start.
pollution isn't something that is kind of taken into account in any of the local codes as such.
It's there, but it's not mandated.
Huh. Right. Understood.
So, so not every project would even implement those things, right?
Hmm. 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 Right. So I guess maybe over time we can hope that these kind of strategies, little by little, they become more stringent, and these ratings will have kind of a higher bar as we go along.
Yes, hopefully.
But also, I think the hope and the positive kind of approach comes from the fact that earlier it was only lead and PM. There was no other option, and those were adaptations of something that's coming from US or Europe, which
Yes.
is more of a cold climate.
Hmm.
And so it's a big difference. Whereas now with these local code compliances, we're able to have something more specific, climate specific, able to kind of bring in all of these solutions into one document. I think that's also a great start. So people can access it, especially if it's not being done. At least there's a minimum bar. At least there's the mandatory. And it was really interesting to also understand these differences because I think each different emirate, each even when you go to Saudi, they will be also slightly differing in their targets or what is considered possible. Because I'm sure the
Right.
developers also have a say in terms of what seems realistic and what isn't realistic, and there is like some kind of a dialogue there during the creation of these codes. And every time it gets revised, I'm sure there will be slightly more tightening of the nuts and bolts and making it a little more stringent, a little bit better than what it was when it started. So let's hope that it gets, it
Yeah.
takes into account more of these elements like light pollution and shading strategies, etc., which become more and more stringent as we go forward.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, hopefully that's the hope.
yes,
Because
yes.
things have changed over the years for sure. Um,
Hmm.
I'm in this region since 2013. I'm in Dubai
Oh,
since 2013. So I have seen a lot of changes for sure.
hmm.
And hopefully over the years, eventually things will even pick up more. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's off to a really great start. There's a really big push in Dubai. There's almost every building is now looking at some way or the other for compliance, even if it's in glass. But even if they're doing glass, they need to find a way to make it sustainable in different other ways. So whether it's
Yeah.
efficiency, whether it's treatment of the glass, whether it's some shading strategy, internal shading, external shading. I think there's at least all of that has now become like very much part and central of the conversation right
Right.
from the outset of the design. And I think that's a huge shift. That's a big shift. And I think government's also doing a great job of making these things incentivized and having
Right.
people also, like giving them that push, fast track approvals, things that allow for them to kind of, really take it up because there's some benefit for them in that as well. Um, right. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
another question I had was when it comes to performance simulations, where we're working on simulation-based software and creating this building in a virtual environment, and
Mhm.
then doing all of our tests and analysis and kind of arriving at optimizing the building design.
Right.
Um, where do you see the biggest gap between what the design intent usually is and then when it comes down to the actual decision making on projects? And this is a little bit kind of going deep into the nuts and bolts of how sustainability is brought into a project or integrated into the project from the heart of the project. So, where do you find that there's the gap where, between when you, in the outside in the beginning